In the past couple of days, my problematic fave Kanye West went from taking advantage of a transparently bigoted, backwards-ass platform to sell more albums to inadvertently red-pilling millions of people. Now, this is the first time a massive celebrity with a very real international platform has so publicly seemed supportive of this cause. So we're gonna break it down. Now look, first off, Kanye is no dummy. Aside from being a musical savant, he's a narcissistic, vicious self-promoter, but he's not an idiot. He's also in many ways the artist our late-stage capitalist culture deserves, one who cares more about how much money he's making off of shoe sales than the art itself. Also, I love that this has become a conversation about how the left won't respect the right, where people are literally like, why won't those Marxist cuck libtard assholes respect me because I love a president who says some of the most idiotic things on the planet? But to say that Kanye should be ignored is foolish. To say that he's been suddenly struck with mental illness is also foolish. Kanye's constant is chaos. He's always been manic at times, but now his mania has led him down the red pill. So what's the red pill? Redpilling is a term from the Matrix, co-opted by members of the alt-right and alt-light, where they claim to feed you truths that are too hard to swallow. It's a process in which certain unspeakable truths are uttered as if they are so incredibly counter to the dominant narrative. These hard truths usually consist of very boring ideas that most members of the public already believe in, but are related in a way that seeks to heighten the potential consequences the speaker will face for even uttering them. It's also often fueled by personal biases and cherry-picked data. For example, one controversial statement Steven Pinker uses in his lecture to describe red pilling is, capitalism is better than communism. You might think that this observation is so unremarkable that you don't even have to say it, but not if you ask Harvard University professor Steven Pinker.
In university campuses, it is considered flamingly radical.
I love the idea that the majority of college students are anarcho-communists who think you're the radical one for positing that capitalism is better than communism. What a ridiculous notion to utter when in the midst of an overwhelmingly capitalist society. Now, first off, there are absolutely social and even economic consequences to saying certain things, especially in our internet lynch mob culture. To claim that there isn't a terrifying lynch mob on the left that does seek to keep certain opinions from being publicly uttered is preposterous. Almost as preposterous as acting like the right does not engage in this very same lynch mob mentality whenever they can. Like when they tried to get that college professor who criticized Barbara Bush fired, or how much they celebrate Colin Kaepernick not being hired. Saying problematic things that the right absolutely hates is my job. So here, for the sake of measure, I'll say some problematic things that I think are true that can easily be taken out of context or otherwise used against me by the left. Number one, men and women are different from one another. That isn't to say they can't excel in the same fields. Actually, I don't even know a single person who doesn't believe this, but the right keeps telling me that social justice warriors get angry at this statement. Number two, there's something off about David Hogg. I don't know what it is, and I like the things he stands for, and the disgusting way people have been attacking him is absolutely preposterous and shouldn't be happening at all, but he seems like a strange kid. I don't know. Number three, I don't completely understand gender fluidity. I don't think the people who claim to understand it on either side fully understand it either. It's a relatively new notion that we're talking about, and while there are absolutely bad faith actors on the "there are only two genders" side, the majority of people have no fucking clue at all, and yelling at them when they even admit that they don't get it makes the left seem unbearable and scary. Four, I think that certain people, especially in media, seek to weaponize victimhood in an effort to appeal to authority and shield themselves from criticism. I said it. Five, I think a lot of Democratic Congress members absolutely weaponize identity politics and exploit communities of color for their reliable votes while not really making a good faith effort at any sort of significant change. Having said that, that still doesn't make them worse than Republicans, who literally do the opposite. Six, I understand why nerdy kids on the internet get radicalized because they feel like they're the enemy for being born white or privileged, just like I understand how Muslims turn into terrorists. Not making a moral equivalency between the two, just saying I understand it. And finally, I think you can be problematic and still be a valuable ally, and our purity spirals sometimes make it hard to do that. Humans are nuanced and they change over time. Matt Damon saying that there's a spectrum of sexual misconduct and then the entire internet dunking on him is a perfect example of us getting way ahead of ourselves. He's fucking right. Al Franken's case isn't the same as Harvey Weinstein's. Neither is good. Both actions should be eradicated, but to get destroyed by an internet lynch mob want for that statement makes us and our causes look utterly unreasonable. And don't get me wrong, if you can jump off of a progressive cause because you don't agree with some of his supporters, then you probably weren't really on board with it to begin with. But we should have some accountability in pushing people away. We should take ownership of that a little bit more. Now, a lot of you know exactly where I stand on almost every issue. It's my job. And some of you will still discount me after hearing the things I just said. And if we do that without looking at where people stand and how they act, then it makes it all the harder to build a strong coalition. The reality is there are hypocrites on both sides, and people of all belief systems constantly try to shield themselves from the consequences of free speech, regardless of whether or not they believe in free speech. So for the right to claim ownership over free speech and now free thinking is absolutely ridiculous. But we on the left must acknowledge our responsibility in letting the right take ownership of these concepts like they try to own patriotism. Now, the other problem is the majority of people are privileged in some form or the other, and therefore shielded from the perils of the disenfranchised, like the struggles facing certain members of the black community or the trans community, or even poor Americans from all backgrounds. So while everyone's dealing with their own very real issues, they tend not to care about the problems others face. And it's up to people like me to make reasonable arguments so that those who normally wouldn't care actually end up caring. I guess the final note I want to end on is this. We all have stupid ideas. We all think and even say bad things from time to time. But I genuinely believe, at least from a cultural perspective, that our conquest to punish people for thinking differently is making rigid conservatism seem more welcoming to most people than the progressive left. We mustn't give up on the people in the margins who can be reasoned with because of the very vocal minorities on either side who are absolutely reasonable. Now, that being said, Kanye is now being used by some of the worst people with really awful ideas that only exacerbate inequality, and he fell down this red pill rabbit hole himself. Probably a lesson in there about how privilege can change the way you view the world, especially if you're really narcissistic. So let's not fall into that same trap and think critically. So, in the words of Kanye, question everything and don't let your free thoughts get manipulated by people who want to sell you outdated, antiquated ideas. I'm Sam Piker. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and please share this video if you like the message that I was trying to deliver. Please don't forget to follow my Instagram at Asandi Piker and my Twitter at Asan the Hun, and this has been The Breakdown.